I think William was sort of looked slightly baffled by the whole thing. Hello, Roya.
Hello, Kate.
Hello, listener. You're listening to The Royals from The Times and Sunday Times.
We'll be looking at the Prince of Wales in Paris and his big date with Donald Trump.
But really, it wasn't Will's week. It was Catherine's week.
And we left you last time just as we were about to go to the Princess of Wales's carol concert at Westminster Abbey, which we were off to straight after we recorded. And it was rather lovely, wasn't it, Kate? Got me in the festive mood.
It was lovely. I mean, it's always very lovely, but this was the 4th annual one that she's done. And given the year that she's had, this was always a point in the calendar that the palace said that she was striving for, that she hoped to be well enough to go to. So it felt like a kind of big moment. She got there on her own and went round meeting performers. And it feels like a lot's happened in the last year, so it's hard to remember what happened last time. But she spent a long time talking to people who, you know, actors, celebrities, Paloma Faith, who was singing in the show. And then she took her time really carefully walking around the Abbey, talking to people who've been invited because of the good work they've done in their community or because of some of the things that they've done. And then came around, spoke to Chris Hoy, the Olympic cyclist, of course, who sadly has terminal cancer. He was there with his partner and children. And it was really nice. It felt very intimate, despite the fact that there were 1,600 people in the Abbey. And we had the King's fir trees, didn't we, from Windsor that had come in.
And she said something really interesting to Paloma Faith, didn't she? So Paloma Faith asked her, you know, she'd asked after her and how she was doing. And she said, well, a year ago, this time last year, when I was here about to do the carol service, I had no idea that I was about to have the year that I've just had, which was a very sort of frank, thing to say. And it did make you sort of reflect on what she's been through in order to get there.
It's also slightly revelatory because although it was announced in January that she was in hospital and had abdominal surgery, it's just that confirmation that she, that came on quite suddenly.
Yeah.
This wasn't something, the palace always said at the time this was a planned operation. So there was a question mark in people's minds as to how long those symptoms had been rumbling on. But I just don't think she knew that, obviously didn't know quite what was going down the line.
And we saw her with William and the 3 children. So we saw Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis together. And we haven't seen them all together since Trooping the Colour. And there was a lovely touch where there was something called a kindness tree outside, and people arrived, members of the congregation, you could go and hang something on it. And Louis came, didn't he, with his little tag, which he went and hung on the tree. And all the photographers sort of zoomed in and took a picture of it. And it said, "Thank you, Granny and Grandpa, for playing games with me."
Who we assumed to be the Middletons, because
we assumed
from that 3-minute video that they put out in September, we saw them obviously playing games with the 3 children there.
It was quite sweet.
After she'd gone around the Abbey, she then went out to meet William and the children to bring them in just before the service started. And William sort of said hi. It was very nice to see them all together. And it was formal in that they were on show. It's going to be something that there were cameras everywhere because it's going to be broadcast on Christmas Eve. We had a trailer that she'd done the voiceover that was released yesterday.
Big royal turnout,
but it still felt quite intimate.
Yeah.
And the 5 of them together, that moment was just really special, I thought.
Yeah. No king and queen, but most of the wider royal family were there to support. And there was.
They have been in the past, haven't they, king and queen? But they haven't. They don't always go every year, and I think it's their time to have a kind of a day off.
And the Middletons always there to support.
Yes.
Pippa was there, and the parents, Granny and Grandpa.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice. There was a funny moment when Kate was talking to Paloma Faith. Paloma Faith got a lot out of her. She was a great kind of royal correspondent on this because she was sort of she's great. She's kind of giggly and bubbly, and they're chatting away. And Paloma Faith says, talking about old kids, aren't they crazy or something? And Kate said, "Well, we've had a bit of an issue at home because there's the ballet soloists who are performing during the service."
Yes.
And Louis had found out about it. She said, "Look, Louis, we want to keep this as a surprise for Charlotte, who loves her ballet. Do you think, you can keep it a secret?" And he was like, "Oh, yes, Mummy, 6 years old." And he kept it secret for 2 weeks, she said. And then the day of the carol service, she was dropping them off at school. And Kate said that Louis had told her, "Mummy, can I tell her I'm bursting?" So I think, although she looked slightly nervous when she arrived, I think the princess really kind of relaxed into it.
Yeah.
And kind of got into her stride. And I think meeting the chatty Paloma Faith as one of the first people she met in the Abbey
Relaxed her a bit.
was actually quite a good move. And obviously then Paloma Faith sang in the service. And the whole service was nice. We had the reading from William, again picking up on the dark, the light coming from darkness. He had a reading from Isaiah.
Which was the theme, wasn't it? One of the themes, sort of love and kindness and empathy and shining a light on things.
Which we've seen throughout, they've consciously used that language throughout the year, haven't they?
So for those of you who weren't there, most of you we know weren't, we were very lucky to be there. You're in for a treat when you get to watch this on Christmas Eve on ITV. But it's been a big week for Kate in other ways too, because she's been trending, hasn't she?
Trending.
She's been trending. She's been in the top 10 topics, things that people have been looking for on Google in 2024.
This year, yeah.
And interestingly, I think it would be interesting to sort of try and break that down, because I'm sure a lot of that spike came from the very difficult time in the spring when, just before she announced she had cancer, when there was all that speculation, wasn't there? So much wild speculation, particularly on social media, about what was wrong with her and where she was.
And everyone was Googling Kate Middleton, because that was one of the
wild conspiracy theories.
Obviously, Princess of Wales as she is now. But everyone was looking for information about her, because there was that period where, she'd had the surgery, she'd gone home to recuperate, and then nothing for a while. And in that kind of vacuum, if you like, was all this kind of speculation. I'm sure some of this message of let's have empathy and love to one another comes from that. The people who have shown her kindness, she's never going to forget this year. But she's not going to forget the slings and arrows that were thrown at her.
She won't. Also been nominated as one of Time's People of the Year, which is a big deal. She's been nominated before, and I think that's...
Actually, when was she nominated before?
2011, apparently.
Oh, when she got married.
Yeah. But news just in that Donald has beaten her to it. Donald Trump has just been named Times Person of the Year.
He also beat her in the Google search list as well for 2024. She was number 10 and he was number 6.
This is what Time has said about the Princess of Wales. The Princess of Wales made international headlines this year and stirred a conversation about privacy and health for public figures. In January, Kate Middleton was hospitalised for 2 weeks for a planned abdominal surgery, and Kensington Palace said she would be out of the public eye until Easter. But after conspiracy theories circulated online in March about her whereabouts, the royal put the rumours to rest by revealing she'd actually been diagnosed with cancer. In September, she announced that she'd completed her chemotherapy. She was previously on the Time 100 list of most influential people in 2013 and one of the runners-up for Person of the Year in 2011. Do you think things like that? Do you think she clocks that she's made that list?
I think it's nice in the year that she's had to be appreciated in that way, because she's had, we talk about the kind of conspiracy theories and all the kind of online kind of trolls and things like that, but some of that was coming from, big media outlets in America and other countries. So actually for them to have acknowledged that she's had this bad year, she's handled it really well, I think, certainly will be a feather in her cap.
Well, she follows in a line of royal history.
I'd like to know I'd like to know why Donald Trump was chosen as the winner and who's on the committee for.
Well, let's find out
for that.
But the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, was nominated in 2018, of course, the year that she and Harry married.
When are we getting shortlisted?
Queen Elizabeth II was named as she won it in 1952.
We should hope so.
The year she became Queen, and Wallis Simpson won it in 1936. A bit more controversial, that. Wow,
been going a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think these things probably do matter.
Anyway, she's been beaten to it by the Donald.
Yes,
who's had a very royal week, hasn't he? Don.
He was thrilled to meet Prince of Wales, wasn't he, in Paris? I think, to put it mildly.
If you're a Sunday journalist like me, and you're on deadline on a Saturday.
Happy Christmas. Oh, no, it was very exhausting.
That meeting, let me tell you, listener, how that played out on Saturday. Slightly torturous.
So you just finally recovered from that.
Planned in the very best. All plans were laid that, we were told William would be going to Paris. He would be meeting with Dr. Biden, Jill Biden, and Donald Trump at the British ambassador's residence in Paris before the ceremony at Notre Dame to officially mark the reopening of Notre Dame. So fine, this was supposed to be the clear choreography, and you thought, great, that fits our deadline. We'll get a front page picture. We can write up, we'll get a readout from the meeting. We can write it all up. It will be there for first edition. Great.
Bear in mind, Paris is an hour ahead anyway.
Storm Dara blows in, just explodes all the plans. And
everyone's late to arrive in Paris.
Everyone's late. William's travel plans are completely sort of obliterated by Storm Dara, and so he arrives late. And then we're getting kind of told, you know, the timings are shifting, and the Sunday Times are going, when are we going to get this? And anyway, in the end, he didn't meet either of them before the ceremony.
He met Dr. Jill Biden there.
He met Joe Biden actually sort of there, and he had a handshake with the Don inside the ceremony, but then they met for their actual proper meeting afterwards. But it was so worth the wait because it did not.
Worth the wait.
The Don did not disappoint.
He was so accommodating. I mean, he was thrilled to see Prince of Wales, which is really interesting because I know he was always thrilled to see the late Queen.
Those are the quotes you're waiting for on a Saturday night.
But
he's a good man.
He's a good man.
He's doing a fantastic job.
It's the way he kind of pointed his thumb at William. He's looking to the cameras and pointing his thumb at William, sort of like my mate. He's doing a fantastic job.
And then,
it did mean a lot.
The body language was interesting too. The handshake.
I think William looked slightly baffled by the whole thing. I mean, first of all, it all came very late. I think the invitation came late. The fact that he's decided
representing the king.
I found out on Friday morning he was going to go over there, but Macron's out there dealing with all his political inferno that's setting fire. Then he's got this huge, world leaders flying in for this huge reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, which obviously burned in an inferno 5.5 years ago. It was a huge kind of world stage event, and then everything seemed to happen last minute.
What I found completely fascinating about it was that, we are talking about the special relationship, which we're told was discussed during that meeting.
Yeah.
It's a very, very important relationship to the UK, regardless of who's president. And we know that Trump is borderline obsessed with the royal family. He mentions his ties to the royal family whenever he can and what great friends he was with the late Queen, how well they got along. He loves flashing photos of them left, right and centre.
I love that.
But I love, what's fascinating, I think, is that William is the first, person to have met him since he's been sort of elected in terms of UK representative.
Yeah, even the Prime Minister hasn't met him.
Keir Starmer saw him in September.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. And does that give you an insight into, I'm thinking out loud, is that a window into how Donald Trump might want to run the special relationship?
And I think that's what the government's thinking as well, that hang on, we've got a massive Trump card, no pun intended, in the royal family with the president-elect who absolutely adores the royal family. This is the way into our relationship. And this is the kind of soft power in action. This is the diplomacy that they can deploy. And this and the state event, the state visit that we had from Qatar recently, I think it underlines the power of the royal family and how they can be deployed and why they are useful, quote unquote, for investment, for trade, for prosperity of Britain in general.
I think it's also particularly interesting given that this is a government with a Trump problem, in that Starmer and the Labour Party have already, and David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, have already caused offence.
David Lammy's tweets, as we've discussed previously, were pretty brutal. A tyrant in a toupee, I think he called him in the past, which is quite short-sighted given how popular he is in the US and the fact that David Lammy's now Foreign Secretary, which is orcs.
And during the campaign, Donald Trump's Republican campaign actually started a legal action against Labour Party for sending over volunteers to, actively campaign, which he claimed amounted to sort of interference with. So I just thought it was really, I thought the choreography and the optics of it were completely fascinating. And I think, let's see how that plays out.
We were also told that Trump shared some warm and fond memories with the Prince about the late Queen, for which His Royal Highness was extremely grateful. So that plays out, doesn't it?
He was probably telling
Looking forward
William
to the state visit from Trump.
Probably telling William what busy mates they were. He does love talking about the late Queen.
It was brilliant, wasn't it?
Anyway,
I love that Elon Musk video when he was on the campaign trail,
flicking through the photos,
and he's in the private jet, and he's got basically this kind of photo book out, and it's like someone going through their family photo. And he's going, there's me with the Queen.
It's extraordinary.
She's amazing. No one has history like this. This is the thing that really matters to Trump.
Yeah.
This can really I think this will be the kind of glue that binds that special relation. The royal family is going to be the glue that binds that special relationship together.
I think it will
between the US and the UK. So watch this space.
Watch this
and
space.
Well done, William will be pleased that it all went well. They managed to meet despite the storms.
Didn't get to watch Match of the Day, but at least as a royal source said, at least Aston Villa won.
Quite. One element of Will's week, which starts from one podcast to the next.
Seamlessly. Will's week. It's always Will's week.
And this week he was visiting 1st Battalion Mercian Regiment in Wiltshire for a festive Christmas lunch with serving troops and their families and little kids, which was really nice.
He's been doing lots of military stuff recently, hasn't he?
He has. He didn't get the memo that you had to wear a Christmas jumper,
Boring.
though. Boring. Didn't put the Santa hat on.
Boring.
He managed to land his equerry in it because someone said, well, where's your Christmas jumper, sir? Or words to that effect. And he said, see that guy in the jacket? It's his fault. He sort of pointed at the new equerry squadron leader, Mike Reynolds, who's his kind of bearded equerry. He's obviously sent the internet into kind of meltdown with everybody fawning over the new equerry. So he blamed it on him. But it was a nice event. He said that Christmas would be just a small affair with just 45 members of his family, but said that they'd be all spread out. So that assumes the usual big show that we'll see at Sandringham on Christmas Day with all the royals.
And then everyone starts totting them up, don't they?
Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, somewhere the other day I was reading that Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, is going for the first time.
He will be going, yes, because he's been plugging his new book, his new royal cookbook, and he said that he will be going for the first time.
Because he said he normally goes to his ex-wife's house and sees the kids there. But this year, he said his mother particularly wanted him after the year that they've all had. Obviously, the king's not been well. He'll be there too, so it'll be. They're going large.
Going large. Go large or go home.
That's how they roll at Sandringham.
Shall we talk about the king? Because this week we got a little insight into the anxiety he felt when he felt he might be decrowned because the crown might fall off his head, I should clarify.
So this came out in a documentary that's been made about
Coronation Girls.
A group of women.
Yeah.
You tell me, Kate, because you went along to the screening, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It's very charming. It's going to be shown in Canada on Boxing Day with the broadcast date set to be announced for the UK. But it's called Coronation Girls, and it's about the 50 girls, 16 and 17-year-old girls, who in 1953 came over from Canada for the coronation, the Queen's coronation, of course. They were paid for by Garfield Weston, who was this big philanthropist, and he bought them they're rural girls from across Canada. He bought them new outfits. They all had little matching red handbags. Oh. He gave them pocket money, new luggage, and sent a steam train to pick them up. So starting in the west coast of Canada, went all across Canada to pick all the girls up for putting them on a boat with Weston's 6 daughters on a ship over to Liverpool, and they had etiquette lessons and everything. So this documentary follows their return journey. They're obviously all in their 80s now, and obviously not all of them are still alive, but a group of 12 of them came over, and it follows them and their friendships and their, it's not just their connection to the coronation. It's their kind of connection to each other that's really interesting. And at the end of it, they meet.
They came over, didn't they, last year?
Yeah, and they came over last year. They didn't come for the coronation this time, but they came in coronation year, and they did get to meet the king. And Richard E. Grant, who keeps appearing at places as well. He was obviously at Kate's Carol concert.
He did a very lovely reading, didn't he?
He did a very lovely reading from Charles Dickens' The Christmas Carol, and he was there. He met the coronation girls, there's obviously now they're women. But during this, the king talked about how he remembered his mother wearing the crown at bath time, which we sort of know from before. But he also...
It's in The Crown, isn't it?
Yes.
It's one of my favourite scenes in The Crown.
It's one of the true facts from The Crown.
one of the facts based in historical fact. Where you see Claire Foy, she comes up and they're in the bath, Charles and Anne as kids, and she comes up wearing the crown. It's quite a charming scene, actually.
And he says he remembers it vividly, the king, when he was talking to these women. And he said, it's very important to wear it for a certain amount of time because you get used to it then. But the big one that you're crowned with, the St Edward's crown, weighs 5 pounds. It's much heavier and taller. So there's always that feeling of feeling slightly anxious in case it wobbles. And his anxiety was probably well-founded because, if you remember, the Archbishop of Canterbury had to have 2 tries to kind of like squidge it
down, didn't he? Justin looked back and then he went to the side and what? Like that.
And when he says it's tall, it's taller and heavier, he's referring to the difference between the St Edward's crown, which you're actually crowned with, and the imperial crown, which is the crown that he wears for the journey back to the palace and for state occasions.
I lose track of all my crowns, Kate. How about you?
Yes, indeed.
Which crown do you wear to the bath?
I've got my everyday crown. I've got my special occasion crown.
I've got my indoor crown, my outdoor crown.
Got my crowning crown. But it's nice to hear him talk about it. And if you do, it must be on YouTube or something. I'll have to find out, because if you do get a chance to see the documentary, if you're not based in Canada, then it's definitely worth a watch, I would say.
Sounds absolutely charming.
It is. Lovely.
Now to Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, who joined over 280 bereaved military children and young people as they came together for a virtual Christmas party hosted by Scotty's Little Soldiers.
Yes, this is a charity dedicated to supporting children and young people who've experienced the death of a parent who served in the British Armed Forces.
And Harry's supported that charity for a very long time, hasn't he? When he came back here in May to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, he made a point of doing an engagement with Scotty's Little Soldiers. Mm-hmm. So it's something that he cares passionately about. It's something that I think whenever he does those engagements, you can see it's genuine, because this is children who've been bereaved. Of course, he was a child. He was 12 when he lost his mother.
He also has a military connection, of course.
Huge military connection.
So he has, he's lost friends in the army. I think it's such a great charity. They've been involved with the Remembrance Day commemorations this year. And there's a young woman called Bethan, who's 23, whose father was Warrant Officer Class 2 David Coomer, served in the British Army and died in 2011 when she was 9. And she's just a classic example of somebody who the charity helps. And she said that she attended the virtual party with Harry, and she said the party was upbeat and in no way sombre. But Prince Harry reminded us that he understands what we have all been through and that it's okay to feel a mixture of emotion.
And Harry was on the call himself, and he said to everyone there, it's okay to feel however you feel at Christmas. Some people will be celebrating and happy. Other people feel reflective. Some people will be sad, and maybe you'll experience every single one of these emotions, and that's absolutely fine. Remember, you've got each other, you've got Scotties, and you've got the people that love you.
That's really nice, isn't it?
Yes.
That's actually quite moving. It's all about the empathy that Catherine talks about in her Christmas Carol concert.
Maybe we'll see him do a reading at that Carol's one year.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath.
Okay.
But no, it was nice to see Harry do that. But why else has he been in the news this week? Something quite different. Harry and Meghan's Netflix polo documentary, about the sport of kings, has landed on Netflix. And here's what the reviews say. Stuart Heritage in The Guardian. Polo looks destined to fall through the sub-menus into obscurity at the speed of light. And rightly so. It's clattering and niche and feels like a spoof documentary designed to play on screens in the background of episodes of Succession. The end of the season goes out of its way to tee up a sequel, but I really don't think any of us deserve that. Wow. He says polo's the stupidest, most obnoxious sport known to humanity. So perhaps not the documentary for this critic to begin with.
If you trawl through social media, I'm reliably informed there are some positive reviews out there. We just couldn't find any critics who reviewed it positively.
No, the Telegraph described it as a tedious inside look at polo, dull indulgence about a rich person's pursuit. So do you think this tallies with their brand?
I think it probably hasn't got the reception that they were hoping for. But then when we touched on this last week, they're not really in it. And well, you see a little bit of Harry in the first episode with Meghan, don't you?
I watched the first sort of 20 minutes and then something more exciting caught my eye. But he's a kind of blink and you miss it. And you do wonder, there's somebody behind the show who was working on polo, was also involved in Welcome to Wrexham, which I'm not particularly interested in football per se, But I really enjoyed that show because to me it was all about the community, and it looked at how...
And the underdog.
The underdog, and how, you know, you can take a struggling underdog football team and why it means so much to the community, and pull out those exciting and really interesting characters and explore their lives. And that's why that show really, really worked. Now, this show, you've just got kind of, you know, very rich polo players and uncompromising fathers who want the best, and you don't really feel that connected to the characters. I think that's at the heart of it. So whether or not Harry and Meghan are actually in the show or not, does it stand, will it stand or fall as a show in its own right? And I think that will be the measure of success for Archewell as, you know, and them as producers going forward, because apart from Meghan's TV career and acting career, my understanding is that Harry's doesn't have kind of great experience of producing major, you know, TV shows or films.
Yeah. I mean, I think it will be fascinating to see. I mean, this being the kind of latest big project for Netflix as part of their big deal, if this isn't a triumph, and it sounds like possibly it won't be a triumph in terms of ratings if the reviews are anything to go by, you know, watch the space. Maybe people will sort of flock to it, but they haven't yet. It came out a few days ago. What is then the future of that relationship with Netflix? What is the future of the output? What is the future of the deal? And I think that's something that would be quite interesting to sort of follow and track and trace. Because, you know, we were told earlier this year by a very big executive at Netflix that they had quite a few things in development. We know they bought the rights to a romantic film.
Yes.
And there were all sorts of things that one of the heads of Netflix said, you know, was going on. But we just haven't seen that yet. So this is the kind of latest big offering. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that relationship evolves and if it evolves.
And Meghan's show as well, when that comes out.
The cookery show, the lifestyle show.
Whatever it, you know, whatever that may be, you know. We were told that's coming out at some point if reports are correct. So
watch this space.
Indeed, literally. So to round off, as Christmas plans continue at the palace, some good news.
What's the good news, Kate?
For the Queen, she met Santa today, who told her she's on the nice list. Good list. So she's not going to get just a lump of coal in her stocking.
Are you on the good list, Santa's good list?
No, apparently all the journalists are not. On the according to the Santa.
Surprise.
No. So let's see.
Why, as you would say.
Why? Well, the year that we've had... been rather busy, haven't we? I think we've all been jolly good.
For that very reason, we should all be on Santa's good list.
Yes.
And I'm sure all the listeners agree.
I'm sure they will.
Anyway.
Join us next week. We will have some little Christmas treats for you over the Christmas period.
We've got lots of Christmas treats for you coming up over the Christmas period. Yes. Anyway, until then, bye, Kate.
Bye, Roya.